Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshack here, and we have a new balance patch. We knew there was some sort of nerfs or buffs that were going to happen towards the end of the World Championship for obviously Hearthstone. They didn't want to change things before those players competed, but now Monday we have a patch announcement, and there's a lot of things being hit, and most of the best decks right now I do not think will be the best decks after this change. They touched a lot of cards, and like I said, most of them fall under like the really powerful decks right now. First one being Unleashed Fel. Old Mana Thirst is 4. The new Mana Thirst is 6, meaning the Quest Demon Hunters and the no minion Demon Hunters that run the Scythe, they can't play the Arcanist on 3 and then Unleash Fel for an additional mana on 4, and basically have a full heal on turn 4 and deal 3 damage to everything. So this is actually like a huge change to this card, because waiting till turn 6 with that lifesteal a lot of the times, if they're playing against an aggro deck, is too late. Being able to, like I said, do that full heal on turn 4, the benefit of that healing is just so good, right? The AoE of the card plus the healing is like basically a mini Reno effect. So by just changing the Mana Thirst, they keep the card the same. It could still clear the board. They just don't get the benefit of healing that early on, which I think is important. Right now, it feels bad when you're playing against Demon Hunter because if you play minions, they're going to heal from the minions and clear the board. If you don't play minions, they're just going to kill you. And if you try to stay at full health, well, you're just going to die at full health anyway. So Demon Hunter is pretty freaking disgusting right now. Relic of Dimensions. I didn't see this one getting hit. It's very similar to like Skull of Gul'dan, where Skull was at 5, it changed to 6. Relic of Dimensions being on 5, moving to 6. It's just an insane draw tool, being able to go like Relic Vault on turn 3 with the Phantasms, and then it perfectly just curves into that turn 5 is pretty nutty. When Relics first came out, obviously this was one of the more powerful ones, if not the most powerful ones, just because of the discounts. Being able to play 0 mana Jaces, 0 mana Alexstrasza, 0 mana just any big minion, if it scales, is pretty incredible. So making this cost like 6 mana definitely fills the... It makes sense, right? Like, you're going to get giant discounts. Most of the time, you're using it with Vault. You're drawing 4 cards. Paying some mana for that is good. And I think this is one of the main, not issues with the deck, but one of the main things that propels it forward is just like they run out of stuff, and then vaulting into Dimensions brings them completely back in the game. So just paying a little bit more for that card makes sense for me. Also, scooting down to Druid, we have a nub. At first, this card was like, is it really going to be good? Is it just going to be played in Celestial Druid? Is it just going to be better for Druids to combo? But it actually turned out that with the nub, you could go a nub, and then you play Bran, and then you play Astalar, and then you basically kill your opponent in one turn with this combo, because you have so much armor, you don't even care about your mana. And you can do like 64 damage on the minimum side. So the old battle cry was gain 8 armor. This turn your minions cost armor instead of mana. And then the new battle cry is gain 8 armor. This turn your next 3 minions cost armor instead of mana. So if you go Bran into Astalar, I guess you could still technically kill your opponent and still do the same thing. It just takes a little bit longer to do that, because before they could just fill up the entire board. But now they would have to be on their end phase of Astalar, or at least the second phase, to get this done. But I think that this change isn't necessarily like trying to fix the Bran combo, because I don't think that Bran is going to be staying. Like, they've already said Bran is not staying in the core set going into next year, but how they change Bran now, we'll have to see. But I don't think this card with Bran will be a problem moving forward. Like, maybe a little bit longer, but I think this is fine. The next 3 minions just makes it so the board doesn't get absolutely flooded. Boon. So Priest right now. So Naga Priest, insane deck, played at very high legend. It's one of the most popular decks up there. If you've seen it, it can just do nothing for the first 4 or 5 turns of the game. Then between turns 4 and 6, they basically make like 25 to 60 in stats with Taunt on the board that can't be silenced because it's just base stats. So unless you have the perfect removal exactly when you need it, you just lose. And I don't think that's a very fun thing to do. And this card is one of the things that can't be silenced, because again, this is just raw stats on the boon. It's not like a buff. So it's very hard to deal with. And it costing 5 mana, I honestly don't care about this card. I've never been a fan of Buff Priest. I've never been a fan of Miracle Priest. I don't like dying in one turn from turn 5 with my opponent doing nothing the entire game, and then they play some combo that I couldn't interact with and I can't kill, no matter what I would have drawn with some certain decks. So it just doesn't feel good. So this card getting nerfed, I don't really care. It could just not exist anymore, and that wouldn't change a thing for me. Priestess. So this card, when it originally came out, again, I've been saying this for a long time. I hate 0 mana cards. I actually despise 0 mana cards. I think cards need to cost mana. Every time they've ever printed a 0 mana card, it's a problem. But they continue to print 0 mana cards. I said that eventually this card will be a problem. It may not be a problem this expansion. It may not be a problem in the next mini set, but inevitably, almost every 0, if not every single 0 mana card to ever hit Hearthstone's existence has somewhere in form migrated itself and cemented it as one of the cards that is used to kill you and combo against you in one turn. Priestess is no exception to that. Or basically, you would have like anywhere between 10 to 15 mana on turn 4 or 5 if you're playing against a priest, and then plus the radiant elementals, making it so spells cost 1 less. I mean, they're playing, I don't know, anywhere between 7 to 15 cards against you, drawing 6 cards and making a 60-60 board and stats with taunt. And this was one of the cards that kind of flowed with that. And the fact that it costs 0 mana meant that they could use everything they had, play Priestess, and then completely reload their mana and pay nothing to do that. So this costing 1 mana, while the boon costing 1 more and Priestess costing 1 more, that may not seem like a lot, it's huge. It's going to slow down their turns 2, maybe 3 turns now. So when they're doing their combo turns, if the deck still even exists, we're looking at turns 7 through 8, not necessarily turn 4 to 5. Maybe turn 6 sometimes, but you have a couple more turns to live, and you have more time to like make a game plan, mulligan, look for something, find disruption, or just kill them before the combo goes off, right? So I'm perfectly okay with these nerfs, and they definitely needed to happen. Next one, as we can see, Necrolord Draka going from 4 cost to 5 cost. A lot of the cards that they're targeting here, guys, are cards that basically kill you in 1 to 2 turns and are very uninteractable. So, Priestess, as we've seen the dimensions, we have the boon, the Necrolord Draka. This is found in the Miracle Rogue with the Sinstone Graveyard, and they just make a giant stealth minion that you can't interact with. They make a giant weapon that you can't interact with. Most of the time, they're playing Draka on a turn that you can't even play Viper anyway. Like, I've seen turn 2, 15, 3 daggers, and it's like, I can't even Viper. It's only turn 2. So her going down to 5 just makes sense to me. She was going to be a problem card. She wasn't upon release. She was good. But as the deck continued to get refined and more cards continued to come out, obviously there's going to be more combinations of things that allow this type of card to be very, very good. And that's just playing a bunch of spells in one turn, and then or minions, and then comboing with this dagger. So you just get a huge dagger, huge stealth minion, and then you kind of just win. So going to 5 mana, again, gonna make her a lot worse and slow down the deck, if not just completely destroy the deck. Oh my gosh. So just talking about it, Sinstone Graveyard, going from 2 to 3, again, slowing this down a bit. This is one of the key cards because remember, when it summons the ghost that gets buffed by how many cards you play, the ghost itself isn't a buffed minion. So again, you can't silence it. You can silence it and it loses stealth, but its stats still remain. And that's kind of a big deal because again, when something has stealth, you can't interact with it. So you're getting hit with a dagger that you can't stop unless you have a taunt, and then you're getting hit with these stealth minions, which you can't stop because they have stealth. So seeing combo cards like this be slowed down a lot is good. It's even crazy because these combo like Miracle Rogues or these Miracle Priests, they were so strong that the decks that were supposed to beat them, which were aggro decks, combo decks normally die to aggro decks, and that's why aggro decks exist, is to kill these combo greedy decks. The combo decks were just killing the aggro decks too. So there was a discrepancy in the force here, and now we're starting to see nerfs, which is going to again slow down those combo decks and then give aggro decks a little bit more breathing room, so then aggro decks can do a little bit better. But then because aggro decks will do better, we might see some control decks pop up, and the control decks can beat up on the aggro decks. And then if the control decks pop up too much, then we might see more of these OTK combo decks. So as you say, it's the circle of life with card games like this. Sketchy information going from the old cost of 3 to 4. This makes sense. Again, Death Rattle Rogue, if you've been playing Hearthstone at all, very popular deck right now. very, very good deck right now. And the fact that you can like play 20, 25 in stats with Death Rattle with Infectious Ghoul on the board prior to turn like 4 or 5 is pretty ridiculous. We played some games with the Death Rattle Rogue. We made a video on it. I had no prior experience playing the deck at all. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was making giant boards on turn 5 or 6, and my opponents were just conceding because there's no card in the game that can stop that. Sketchy information was part of the process of getting your hand and your death rattles to a level that they could not be dealt with, or reducing them down where you could play like invincible on turn 3 and then another invincible on turn 4. And again, nobody can deal with that. That there's just you lose. And having Hearthstone games where you just lose because your opponent drew the nuts doesn't really feel good. So reducing, again, down the power level of some of these really, really good cards so games feel like they can play out a little bit slower and give you more time to answer stuff, I think is good. Forsaken Lieutenant going from the old cost of 2 to 3. So this is, again, very big. They have nerfed a lot of the most popular decks here. Rogue got obliterated, in my opinion. Demon Hunter got obliterated, and Priest absolutely got obliterated too. So I am going, I don't know where this meta is going to pan out to be. I'm really, really hoping that some like deck that they just missed doesn't pop up immediately and become like the best deck. Like maybe Druid wasn't hit good enough because you can still technically do the Bran and Nub combo, and that could be a really big problem, right? So I'm hoping with these nerfs we see a lot of the decks and a lot of the, especially Death Knight decks that haven't had the time to be good, to be a little bit better. So again, Lieutenant going to 3, slowing down the death rattles you can play, playing Lieutenant on 2, are sketchying, and then getting a death rattle like an Invincible, and then going Lieutenant into Invincible on turn 4 or 5. Again, ridiculous. Slowing down these turns, very, very good, and this was a very, very good card in the death rattle rogue deck. Taking a look at another massive nerf here. Your new deck size is 40, but your starting health is 35 instead of 40. This is just huge. This is a massive change to Prince Renathal. And while I do like any change to the game to spicing it up and freshen it up, this I don't know how this is going to carry over, because I'm pretty sure this just completely obliterates Prince Renathal decks. Like an extra 5 health doesn't correlate to adding 10 cards in your deck unless you're playing like a super greedy control deck. And at which point, like 5 health isn't worth 10 cards. You could just play a card that gives you 5 health, and then like the consistency of drawing one of those cards, which gives you 5 health, is worth more than just the additional 5 health for the 10 cards, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So you could just play like 10 health is quite sizable, right? But a 5, I think they've actually just blown up Prince Renathal. I think you'd only now play this card in, there might be one, there could be like one good deck with him now in standard, like maybe Druid still, but like there's the decks that like everybody's just, you know, just play Prince Renathal in the deck, and like it's still like pretty good, right? You can do it with any class. Now I think that's over. I think Prince Renathal is only going to be good in like maybe one class, and it's going to be better just to run 30 card decks now. And that's very sad, because Prince Renathal was one of the best things to happen to Hearthstone, in my opinion. I think they could have balanced the aggro decks a little bit better, because the aggro decks queuing into 40 HP control decks is just GG's. You know what I mean? So maybe they should have scaled some other things differently. But like Prince Renathal himself, like literally changed the way Hearthstone was played. In my opinion, a better place. So, Tome of Tampering is now banned in Wild. Apparently, discard decks in Wild are good, or discard Warlock. I don't know. I don't play Wild, but this card being just completely banned just tells me that Wild is wild. And what do we else? We have got some Death Knight buffs here. Corpse Bride. Spend up to 8 corpses to summon a ghoul. To spend up to 10. This card wasn't played ever anyway. I don't know why you would play this card. This is a weird card to nerf or buff, in my opinion. I don't think this card needed a buff. I think you could buff it, but I hope to see other buffs of more important cards that are good, because this is still not good, nor would I play this card. But maybe it's good, but I don't think it's good. Maleficent Horror, at the end of your turn, spend 5 corpses, summon a copy of this minion. Yeah, this card was horrible. I tried playing this in like a buff Death Knight, and it just felt so bad. At the end of your turn, spend 4 corpses to summon a copy of this. 4 corpses? For a copy? The problem with this card is mainly when you like its original form is good, play it. Let's say it's a 5/5, it copies it for 4 mana. You played a 4 mana 5/5 and it copied and you summon cost 4 corpses, right? But when they kill it, it turns into a 2/1 and then it copies itself again and you spent 4 corpses to make a 2/1. And that's bad. Because it loses any buffs, obviously it has. So unless you rebuff it again, again, just 4 corpses is just a lot to spend, period. So like maybe it makes it good, but this would be really good at 3 corpses. If it was 3 corpses, then we're like seriously talking. But that might be too good. But 4 corpses, I don't know. I'll have to test it out, but I still think this card is bad. Meat Grinder. Shred a random in your deck, gain 3 corpses. Shred a random in your deck, gain 4 corpses. I don't know, like, I guess you could maybe play this in like an aggro unholy DH, and that was like the problem with it, but like I would never play this card. Like, you basically, I mean, it makes sense if you're playing like a super aggressive, like Maleficent Horror, Meat Shred, Meat Grinder, like they're pushing this, right? You play Meat Grinder, you get 4 corpses, and then what card spends 4 corpses on turn 4 the turn after this card? You know what I mean? Like, okay. But maybe that's good. Maybe Meat Grinder, Maleficent Horror is good. It just seems like it's a weird way to go. I haven't seen either of these cards played. I think we could have hit a couple other more fun unholy DH cards or DK cards than this. To be completely honest, I mean the flavor behind Meat Grinder and what it does is fine, but there better be more. Bright Fang, 3 mana 3/4. In fact, all enemy minions when they die summon a 2/2. Yeah. This going to 3/4 is fine. This is a really good card. We played this in our triple unholy Death Knight. It did its job almost every time we played it. It seems a little underwhelming at first, but the card is actually quite nice. Even if you only hit like 2 or 3 minions, like think of this as like a 3 mana 5/6 or 3 mana 7/8, and some of it has taunt, and the things that it summons on your side again do have taunt, and they also count for corpses. So very good card. Little underrated, but pretty good. Stitch Giant. Old cost is 10, new cost is 9. Yeah, this card sucks dick. This card is still bad. The thing is, you have to spend the corpses, not generate the corpses. If it was generated, it'd be too good. And if it like spending them, the thing is like you have to have corpses in the first place to spend the corpses, and then when you've spent the corpses, that's a lot of corpses to spend. So you have to like play a 4 into a 5 drop that both spend corpses, and then your 1 and 2s have to have gained you enough corpses to spend those corpses, and then you have to have this in your hand. It's just like like the only time these 8/8 cards are good is when you can play them by turn 3 to 5, like consistently. Like a turn 3 to 5, 1 to 2 mana, 0 mana 8/8, like we've seen with Flesh Giant, Molten Giant, Mountain Giant, Arcane Giant, all the giants, right? They've all had the same thing that makes them good, as you can play them extremely early in the game, and you blow out the games. This is like it's a fair giant. That's the problem. Is fair, and you can't be a fair giant. You just need to be a broken giant. So this card, in my opinion, still bad. The Deathbringer. I like this card. 3 mana. It was a 3/3, and now it's a 4/3. This is kind of a big deal, I suppose. I played this card. It felt good at 3/3. Felt pretty annoying, and at 4/3, it's just better. So this card's actually like a pretty solid double unholy now. I guess you summon a 3/3. So I guess you could have made this like a 3 mana 4/4, and then it summons a 3/3, and then you spend 3 corpses, and then it would actually be really good. And then you could have like made a triple unholy or whatever. I don't know. I thought when it summoned back it would also be a 4/3, but the text reads it is just a 3/3. So just adding 1 attack to this minion, I don't think that's I don't think that's gonna make Unholy Death Knight good. Is the single attack onto the first round of Deathbringer. That's a weird hill to climb there, but sure. Remy Boy, this is one of my favorite Frost cards. I don't know why I like him so much, but I like this card so much. He's a 5 mana 4/3, and then he summons 2 2/1 Rim Elementals at Death Rattle 2. So he basically summons 2 volatile skeletons, but they're 2/1s. You could have done this in 2 separate ways. Keep him a 3/3 and make, instead of 2/1s, they're 2/2s, or you make this guy a 4/4. Again, adding 1 attack, I just don't know. Like if that's really gonna, like, this isn't even like a card people play in their Frost deck. It could be, but like I like him, but I don't know, man. It just seems like we'll have to see. I don't think these one attack changes really change anything. They make it a little bit better, but Death Knight is hurting right now. Like Death Knight, nobody like the World Championship just happened this past weekend. Not a single player brought Death Knight. Not a single person in the entire competitive format for the biggest tournament of Hearthstone had all year. Not a single player brought Death Knight. Not a single one. Zero. Zero people played it, which means it sucks. It sucks really bad, which means we need more than one attack. But sure. Obliterate. Destroy a minion, your hero takes 3 damage. Okay, this is good. This is actually a really good change for Blood. This is probably the strongest change that I've seen so far. Because dealing damage equal to the card that you kill's health. Right now we're in a meta where there's people like Druids playing 25, 25 Insatiable Devourers. You can't be taking 25 health to kill 1 minion, right? So now when you get Obliterate, it just feels good. Like 2 mana, take 3 damage, kill whatever you want. This is actually a solid card, and just it might just slot into Blood DH now. Like, no cap, for real, for real. Like, the card's actually good now. Blood Tap. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Spend 3 corpses, give them +1/+1 more. And now this spend 2 corpses. So you spend a third less on the corpses. Sure. I don't really know what to say other than like that's a card in the game and that it got buffed. So, and then the rest I believe are just, yeah, there's just some changes. Wow. I don't play Battlegrounds, guys, but it's still is interesting to see cards like this in Battlegrounds and it be like a 6-star unit, because when I played this game, like when it first came out for the first 2 weeks, like Murlocs with Poisonous was the best thing in the game, and I don't play it, but whenever I do tune in, like very not often, Murlocs with Poisonous are still like one of the best things, and it blows my mind that like that is still like what's going on is like Murlocs and then giving them Poisonous, and that's like the, why would you? The game mode has to be good, but man, imagine playing the standard meta and having the same deck be good for like 2+ years. And they keep nerfing it, and it's just still the best deck for 2+ years. Oh man, I feel sorry for Battlegrounds players sometimes. I feel good, like, because it's the main game mode, and that's what most people do play. But man, oh man, it must be really good to make up for stuff like that. But these changes, anyway, guys, are massive. These changes are actually massive. This meta should shake up a bit, and I'm hoping that it does not get solidified too quickly. I'm hoping some classes that don't see play right now, especially Death Knight, do see some play. I wish I would have seen some more buffs to Frost DK and Unholy DK, and maybe a couple tweaks to Blood to make it just Blood needed a little bit, like Obliterate was probably enough. And then Frost and Unholy needed a lot of help. It got very little help. And Frost got literally nothing. Like, I don't think Rim Sculptor doesn't make a damn difference in Frost, but maybe it does. With that, what you guys thinking? Were the like taking out the Death Knight? I think the balance changes were great. I think they could have done more for Death Knight. But yeah, that's my take. Everything was good, but the Death Knight changes, which could have been those changes, but just more. We just needed more. But that's just me. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video, of course.